Hello, welcome back. Today I wanted to take a look at continuation of the blog API, of course, and I wanted to take a look at um, adding in a actual user object. And so we're going to be pulling in Devise. Anybody that's used the Devise gem kind of be able to follow along. Or if you have heard of it and you don't know what it is and you haven't set it up before, it's actually super simple. Just follow their little instructions that are on here, and it pretty much just does it itself, and it's going to add a lot of features. And my end goal is that people can log into my blog using uh, using their GitHub credentials using or through OAuth. So, and basically what that's going to do is that's going to give me the ability to add in comments, and then you'll be able to comment on things, and it will save the comment based on your user type, or your user, sorry, and I'll also be able to do some other nice things with users and stuff. So not really a sign-in page. There should just be you click a button and then it's going to ask you some questions, and then you say yes, and then that's pretty much it. You're signed in. Yeah, we'll see how this all looks on the front end when we get to it, but first we need to actually get the blog up to that point, so, or the back end to support that. So what we're going to do is we'll go into our gem file, and we're going to add in Devise. Just add that in wherever, and then go into our workspace folder, backend, and we will go git, let's see, bundle install, and that should install Devise. I believe I have it already pulled down on this computer somewhere, yeah. So the Devise is in there now. That was pretty quick though. And so we flip back over, and then we need to do Rails generate Devise install. So if we flip over and we run that, it will now give us some sort of output. Like an error. Require cannot allocate memory. Am I running out of memory on this machine or something? Aha. Okay, so when you install Devise, it tells you a couple things. Some setup you must do manually if you haven't yet. Ensure you have defined a default URL options. You've defined default URL options in your environment files. Here's an example of default URL options appropriate for development environment in config environments development.rb. So we need to set this. And we will go into exactly where it says config environments development, and we'll drop this in really wherever. And instead of localhost, I'm pretty sure we want 0000 since that's where it all binds. Localhost may be appropriate, but nitrous, I'm not sure how well it plays with nitrous, so we'll need to figure that out. In production, host should be set to the actual host of your application. Let's go ahead and do that, just so I don't forget to do it later. So we will paste that in, and the host is at videosquarantine.com and port 8080. Okay, simple enough. Now, ensure you have defined the root URL to something in your config routes, which I don't have, but this is more using Devise with actual like front-end facing web development, and we're looking for we're looking for backend and Heroku and Devise views. We don't want Devise views. So that's really what we have at the moment. So now we have generate will install an initializer which describes all of. Alright, so now we will Rails generate Devise model and replace model with user. Or whatever we want to call it. I'm satisfied with user. No need for fanciness. Okay, simple enough. So now we're going to replace model with a class name used for the application's users, frequent user, but could be admin, blah blah blah. Then we need to check the model for any additional configuration options you might want to add. So it's serious when it says check the model. So we're going to go. We're going to go back in here and we're going to go into our models. Well, refresh, make sure we have everything, and go into our models folder and go into user, and there's some stuff in here that we want to check out. And one of the things we want is omni-authable. Recoverable, rememberable, trackable, validatable. Yeah, that's all fine. Confirmable. I really just want database authenticatable, registerable. I'm not sure exactly how to tailor these options to exactly what I want. Really, all I want is just OAuth. So, okay. And then the other thing that it mentions in the file over here is that once you've done that, check. For example, if you add the confirmable option for your, you need to uncomment the confirmable section in the migration. So, if you add an option, be sure to inspect the migration file. Okay, so we're going to flip back over, and we go models. Sorry, not models. No, database. Migrate. Devise. Authenticatable, recoverable, rememberable, trackable, confirmable, lockable, and okay. So we don't need to uncomment any of these since we didn't add anything that requires any sort of extra tables. Okay, so we will save that, and now we can run rake db migrate to migrate up the database with the new user model. And we get a big fat error that states, what did I run out of memory again? Cannot load such file omni-auth. Please ensure you have the omni-auth gem 1.0 installed and listed in your gem file. Okay, so omni-auth is required, so we're going to go into here, gem omni-auth. So read your error messages. They usually will tell you what's going on. So we will run bundle install. And as that's running, I'm going to come down here, look at some of this stuff. Strong parameters, configuring views, configuring controllers. We'll get to that. Configuring routes, I18N test helpers, omni-auth. Devise comes with omni-auth support for out-of-the-box authenticate to other providers. To use it, simply specify your omni-auth configuration in config initializers Devise. So yeah, this is what we want. This is the omni-auth piece of the puzzle that we need inside of our Devise setup. So we will go into it was config, right? Refresh, make sure we have everything. Initializers and Devise. Okay. Secret key used by Devise. Devise uses this key to generate random tokens. Changing this key will render it invalid. Okay, whatever. Omniauthable. So load and wait. Nope, that's not what I wanted. White space, tell authentication, HTTP, Ajax, true by default. Or Ajax requests. HTTP authenticatable on XHR. Yes, I believe. Tell if authentication through HTTP auth is enabled. False. By default, it can be set to an array that will enable HTTP authentication only for the given strategies. For example, authenticatable database will enable it only for database authentication. The supported strategies are database. Oh, and that's really it. Okay, well, I'm not using a database, so tell if authentication through request.params is enabled. True by default. It can, okay, so that's true anyways. Configure parameters to the request object for authentication. Each entry given should be a request method. It will be automatically passed the find for authentication method considered. Okay, configure which keys are used when authenticating a user. The default is just email. You can configure it to use username subdomain. Sure. Realm uses an HTTP basic authentication application by default. It will change confirmation, password recovery, and other workflows to behave the same regardless email provider right or wrong. By default, Devise will store user in session. You can skip storage for particular strategies by setting this option. Notice that if you're skipping storage for all authentication paths, you may want to disable generating routes to Devise's session controller by passing skip sessions Devise for. By default, Devise cleans up CSRF token authentication to avoid CSRF token fixation attacks. This means that when using Ajax requests for sign in and sign up, you need to get a new CSRF token from the server. You can disable this option at your own risk. Okay. Configuration for confirmable. Not too concerned about that. Validatable. Timeoutable. Lockable. Recoverable. Encryptable. Omniauth. Aha. So this is the line, right? Add new Omniauth provider. Check the wiki for more information on setting up your models and hooks. Cool. When using Omniauth, Devise cannot automatically set Omniauth path, so you need to do it manually. For the user scope, it would be config Omniauth path prefix myengine users auth. Using Devise inside an engine, let's call it okay. I'm not using it in engine. If we want to use other strategies that are not supported by Devise or change to the failure app, you can configure them inside config.warden block. Check the wiki for more information on setting up your models and hooks. Well, we should probably do that. So there's a lot of reading. Read more about in the wiki. Here, see, there's a lot of reading to set up a lot of this stuff, but once you've got it, it should be good. I was hoping there was like a clickable link for Omniauth without other authentications. What? Troubleshooting. First step is to add an Omniauth gem to your application can be done in our gem file. Here we'll use the Facebook as an example, but you are free to use whatever and as many Omniauth gems as you'd like. Generally the name is Omniauth Provider, where provider can be Facebook or Twitter, for example. For a full list of well, I know GitHub is supported, so we need to install the gem Omniauth Facebook. Or sorry, go over gem GitHub. Alright, and we'll run the bundle install again because we now need to pull that in. Alright, next up you should add the columns provider string and UID string to your user model. So we want to run this command next. And we'll run that command. And rate db migrate. And flip back over here. Next, you need to declare the provider in your initial. We have done that. Replace the app ID and app secret with your app ID and secret. To alter the permissions or scopes requested, check OmniAuth Facebook Gem README. After configuring your strategy, you need to make your model OmniAuthable. So, note, if you're running a Rails server, you'll need to restart it to recognize the change in the Devise initializer, or adding OmniAuthable to your user model will create an error. Currently, Devise only allows one model to be OmniAuthable. If you want to use OmniAuth with multiple models, check out OmniAuth with multiple odd models. After making a model named user OmniAuthable, and if Devise for users was already added to your config routes, Devise will create the following URL methods. Note that Devise does not create URL methods. While you will never use the callback helper above directly, you only need to add the first one to your layouts in order to provide Facebook authentication. Devise for users, controllers, OmniAuth, callbacks. Alright, so a little bit more stuff to do. So we need to add this to our model. So we'll flip over to, let's save this, flip over to the model user, and we have OmniAuthable in the model, but we want OmniAuth providers in there. Providers being GitHub. Okay, and then user, and if Devise for users was already added to config routes, let's see if that's happened. Config routes. I don't see a Devise for, so we'll take we'll throw that in, and we should probably put that at the top. I just have a feeling. Oh, no, it is here. It's right here. It's right at the top. Okay. Awesome. Cool. Okay. Note that Devise does not create the URL method. Yeah, I already read that. And then, okay, while you'll never use the callback helper above directly, you only need to add the first one to your layouts in order to provide Facebook authentication. Link to sign in with Facebook user OmniAuth authorized path. The symbol passed to the user OmniAuth authorized path method matches the symbol of the provider passed to Devise's config block. Please check that OmniAuth gems README to know which symbol you should pass. Okay. Try clicking on the above link. The user will be redirected to Facebook. If this link doesn't exist, try restarting the server. After inserting their credentials, they'll be redirected back to your application's callback method. To implement a callback, the first step is to go back to our config routes.rb file and tell Devise which controller we want to implement the OmniAuth callbacks. So I guess we need to add this. So we go to Nitrous, go back to our routes. Here we're in routes. Add that in. Sure, users OmniAuth callbacks. Okay, now we just add the file app controllers users omniauth callbacks controller.rb. Okay. So we need to do that. Controllers. All right, and I guess we need to create a new file, users, and oh, it's not a file. It's a folder. Create a new folder, users, and then we need a file called omniauth callbacks controller rb. Controller, nope, users, new file, pass the file name in, open that file up, and then we're going to paste in this, save, come down here. Callback should be implemented as an action with the same name as the provider. Here's an example action for our Facebook provider that we could add to our controller. So we're going to copy this and then we'll take a look at it. Boom. Alright, so we'll call it GitHub right off the bat. You need to implement the method below in your model. From omniauth, request environment, omniauth.auth. If user.persisted, sign in and redirect event authentication. This will throw if user is not activated, okay? Set flash message if navigational format, and else devise.github data request omni environment omniauth auth redirect to new user registration URL. Okay, so one of the things that makes this kind of crazy is that Devise is made so that you can place this onto an actual application, as in like a full web application where I'm serving it from here. And I'm going to have to try to figure out how do I make this work with an API so that you sign into the API with the OAuth stuff. So a little different, and I might even try to find a I might try to find something that does that. So if you're using only omniauth authentication, you need to define a route named new user session. If not defined, route will be used. Below is an example of such routes. You don't need to include it if you're also using database or other authentication with omniauth. So it looks like there's still plenty of setup that we need to do, but this is getting kind of long. We've we've plugged a lot of stuff in. So the main message to take home here is that Devise is great. It doesn't seem like it when you're working with it at first because you're just reading a lot of documentation. But if you want to get things, doing OAuth, if you were trying to do this manually, it would take quite some time, and Devise is a very highly respected gem that does authentication really well. It's used in a lot of applications, and trust me when I say that the time that it takes to set this up is pretty minimal compared to the time that it would take for you to kind of hack out your own solution and read all the documentation on building your own solution. That's the big thing. Like, they've pretty much provided you with step-by-step instructions. You just need to go through and read it, and you'll see that it's not that bad. Yeah, use your documentation, read your documentation, follow it, and at the end it should all just work, and it'll be really nice. So when we pick up next time, we'll see if we can't get this a little further along, and even see if we can get it working. So I will see you guys next time.